this is the meat of the issue, and if you actually spend time to look at what happened, I think you'd be appalled. Remember, they say, okay, we're not going to go and talk to the campaign, we're going to send people in, wire them up, and have them talk to the individuals. That happened. That happened in August, September, and October, and it all came back exculpatory. People say, I don't know, don't know what you're talking about. Not only exculpatory as to a relationship with the Russians, but as to the specific facts. A, they never did anything about that. They just pressed ahead. But B, they never informed the court. They were told they didn't have probable cause to get a warrant, and so they took the Steele dossier, which they had done nothing to verify, and they used that to get the warrant, to just collapse everything. They withheld from the court all the exculpatory information, and they withheld from the court information about the lack of reliability of Steele. In January, they went to Steele was dealing with one person. He only talked to one person, and that's what we call the primary subsource, and it was that person who had the so-called network of subsources. When they finally got around to talking to him, he said, I don't know what Steele's talking about. I didn't tell him this stuff. Or, it was mostly barroom talk and rumor. I made it clear to him this was my own suppositions and theories. And, this is, and at that point, it was clear that the dossier was a sham. So what happens? What happens at that point? They don't tell the court, and they continue to get FISA warrants based on that dossier. And more damning is that they actually filed with the court a statement saying, we talked to the subsource and we found him credible and cooperative. And they put that in to bolster
when the subsource had actually said.
What he was being truthful about is that the dossier was garbage.
There was nothing, yeah.
So it's hard to look at this stuff and
just very quickly,
not think that it was a gross abuse.
Let me put it another way. Do you think the judges, the 4 separate FISA judges in those courts, were badly misled?
Yes.
Are people going to be held accountable?
Well, they're all gone.
Do they need to be held? Is there some? I mean, you've mentioned obviously the other investigation that's going on.
I think that's.
Is that up to and including Jim Comey, Andrew McCabe?
I'm not going to speculate, who, but
do you think they're implicated in that statement?
I think I've said that I think that that group, there was a failure of leadership and I'll just quote the IG. I mean, the IG says that the explanations he received were not satisfactory. Now, when you have the kind of rank behavior that involved, and the IG says he doesn't get an explanation for it, you can draw your own conclusions from that. One of the things that's poisonous about our politics is the use of the criminal law process as a political weapon. And both sides, to some extent, are guilty of this, and instead of just debating ideas, they want to label their adversary as a criminal, and they pore over the U.S. code to try to find some kind of esoteric argument as to why what someone does is a crime, and then get in a criminal investigation. And then they start calling for scalps. So, nowadays I'm constantly hit. Why aren't people going to prison for what they did to the president? On the other side, throw Bill Barr in prison. And these things take time. What protects all of us is that the government has to have proof beyond a reasonable doubt, at least under Justice Department standards, before we indict anybody. And that's a pretty substantial hurdle, and no one is going to go to jail, and no one's going to be indicted unless that standard is met. And I know a lot of people, and also, they think if I don't like someone and I don't like what they did and I'm morally outraged, send them to jail. And why isn't this person being indicted? And that's, sort of poisoning the system.